Good evening and welcome to The Update, your home for your local and nationwide news. We've got a full slate of Iowa City, Iowa, and nationwide news, along with updates from the White House and Capitol Hill.
Along with the latest from polls, keeping your facts straight, and a look ahead for the rest of the week.
And good evening, folks, and glad to have you with us. As Jordan, it's been a while since we've both been on screen for the update. A lot of stuff has happened. We had an election, we had stuff pop up when we brought back the update coming into the new year, just so much. And Jordan, good to have you here.
Yeah, Johnny, I mean, it seems like every week we went to film this, there was some sort of event going on, whether it was a protest or city council candidates getting together to talk. And, you know, in a week full of love on Valentine's Day, the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, and I'm glad to be back with the brother I love.
It's great to have you, Jordan. As we're going to get into it finally together as a family, Jace is out tonight with a sickness, and so I know you're battling a little bit of a sickness, so to get you home and resting, we'll jump right into it. Jordan, tell us what you got for local news.
Yeah, Johnny, and you know, Michael Jordan, my name's Jordan. Well, I'm about to put up a flu game-like performance here for you. The last few weeks, we've been following a special race here in Iowa City to fill its District C City Council seat. The primary for it took place last Tuesday, and now we have the results. There were 3 candidates on the ballot, but only 2 could advance. Oliver Weiline, Ross Nusser, and Sharon DeGraw were the 3 names on it. DeGraw, however, had dropped out prior to the primary, but her name was left on the ballot. Weiline and Nusser were the ones that advanced, with Weiline having a sizable amount more votes than his fellow candidates, gapping Nusser by nearly 400 votes. Weiline and Nusser will face off again on March 4th to decide who will fill that District C seat. The Campaign to Organize Graduate Students, or COGS, met with the Board of Regents last week to petition for higher wages. And the man who makes my job so much easier, Johnny Valtman, was there speaking with protesters.
Members and supporters of COGS met outside the Danforth Chapel ahead of their face-off with the Iowa Board of Regents. COGS are continuing their fight for higher wages as negotiations between two sides begin.
We need a living wage. To get to $35,000 a year in Johnson County would be a living wage. That's what we're asking for eventually. Over a few years, we hope to get there.
Entering the Iowa Memorial Union, chants echo throughout the halls.
Now! We don't get it! Shut it down!
Members packed the inside and outside of the homecoming room, but the members of the Board of Regents were not there. Instead, lawyers who would head the opening talks. COGS opened up the talks requesting that many benefits that were eliminated in 2017 be restored. After a brief break, the lawyers returned with their initial offer.
In the face that the Board of Regents came back with a 3% raise for us. Based on our data that we have collected, it should be at least a 25% raise.
The offer was more than the legal minimum, which COGS was fighting for. However, many of the proposed conditions members wanted put back in were left out of the contract.
Also, no, I'll be satisfied when we get a robust contract back from the Board of Regents with everything we asked for and more.
As the meeting drew to a close, COG members wanted to remind what impact they have on the University of Iowa.
We do!
You might not realize that the person teaching them is a graduate student and isn't a full professor. And I think we don't have an exact number, but it's somewhere around 40% of all the classes taught here are taught by graduate students. And I think the university really, our jobs here, without us, the university would not work.
And as COG members left the IMU disappointed with the offer, they'll get another chance on February 20th in a closed-door session with the Board of Regents to try and negotiate a higher pay raise. From the University of Iowa, Johnny Valtman, DITV.
Now, Johnny, like I was saying earlier, we had a special election last week here in Iowa City. Now we got a special election coming up for a state seat.
Yes, Jordan, and even though it comes off the heels of somewhat of a tragedy, you know, it is important for Iowa and the House of Representatives here in the state. And for more on that and some other bills going around Iowa, we're going to send it over to Kayla Smith, who has what's going on around the state of Iowa.
Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds has set the date for an Iowa special election. This election is for District 100 for the seat formerly held by Representative Martin Graber. Graber was serving his 3rd term in the Iowa legislature when he passed away on January 31st. The election is set for March 11th. Governor Kim Reynolds also signed an executive order to establish a DOGE task force here in Iowa on Monday. DOGE stands for Department of Government Efficiency and is a continuation of the DOGE efforts at the federal level led by Elon Musk. The main goals of the department here in Iowa include lowering government costs, maximizing on taxpayer investments, and recommending new workforce training programs. There's also been a never-ending stream of interesting bills coming out of the Iowa legislature this session. Let's take a look at House Study Bill 97. Now, this bill looks to change all classroom instruction and handouts that reference the Gulf of Mexico and Mount Denali to the Gulf of America and Mount McKinley. This would go to match Trump's executive orders that changes the names of the 2 landmarks. And then Senate Study Bill 1051 advanced from subcommittee last week. Now, this bill would help to shield pesticide manufacturers from lawsuits involving cancer or other health issues that could be associated with the use of certain pesticides if passed. Iowans would not be able to sue these companies if there is sufficient warning on the packages that complies with federal regulations. State news in the Iowa legislature always keeps us on our toes, but for now, let's go ahead and send it back to the guys in the studio.
Now, there's an Australian radio broadcasting company called Triple J, but we have our own Triple J here at DITV between Johnny, Jordan, and Jace. But of course, Jace isn't here this week, so you're filling in for him.
Yes, Jordan, I'm filling in for Jace. Hopefully he's feeling better, but we're going to be taking a look at nationwide and, a lot going on around the country, and so we're going to get right into it. President Donald Trump threatened that if all of Israel's hostages held by Hamas are not released by Saturday, that the current ceasefire agreement between the two should be revoked. The president will not take executive action as of now, as he will leave the decision to Israel.
As far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out.
Just earlier Monday, Hamas announced they are delaying the next hostage release, claiming Israel targeted Palestinians in Gaza with shelling and gunfire, along with failing to allow enough aid into the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview that he is ready to negotiate with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Zelensky will only come to the negotiating table if the United States and other European allies will continue their support for his country. He stressed that he's not looking for a freeze in the war, warning that Putin and Russia would only come back stronger. And as the Trump administration continues their objective of solidifying the southern border, a record 4 million cases for the immigration court are backed up. This court decides whether to deport an individual. The number is a accumulation that starts all the way back around 2020 and 2021. One judge even claimed that the next hearing date is all the way out in 2027. And Jordan, there is a lot of Trump in there, and I think our next segment might be touching more on it.
Yeah, Johnny, I'm always kind of concerned about what's going on with the White House, especially what's with all going on right now.
Yes, and it's a good thing, Jordan, because we got the White House update for you, and we're going to be picking it up from last week and get into what was a busy weekend for the current administration. Picking up from last week, Elon Musk's Doge agency was blocked from accessing the United States Treasury Department's payment system by a federal judge. The order on Saturday halts Doge, who continues to fund and eliminate government costs. Doge's decision last week to shut down the United States Agency for International Development continues to receive backlash.
There is a more effective approach in going through USAID and trying to figure out, what are the types of actions that we support, what are ones that maybe we stop or we fix.
On Sunday, the president traveled down to New Orleans to attend the Super Bowl between the Chiefs and Eagles, where he declared February 9th as Gulf of America Day. Last week, the president floated around the idea of America occupying the Gaza Strip once the Israel-Hamas war is finished.
And we don't want Hamas going back. And think of it as a big real estate site. And the United States is going to own it and will slowly, very slowly, we're in no rush, develop it.
The administration is also preparing to issue more tariffs, including a 25% one on any steel and aluminum that enters the country. More tariffs are expected to come later this week.
And it'll be great for everybody, including the other countries. But if they are charging us 130% and we're charging them nothing, it's not going to stay that way.
Elsewhere, Vice President J.D. Vance is on his first international trip as he is in Paris. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Egypt, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is in Europe, as he'll be stopping by Germany, Poland, and Belgium.
And Jordan, I know the executive branch gets a lot of attention in the media cycle now, but something the president and the administration needs to get a lot of what they want done is Congress.
I mean, yeah, Johnny, there's just always so much going on. It's got my brain spinning. And, but I knew someone who does got it under control, and that's Kayla, so we'll send it back to her.
Thanks, guys. Now let's go ahead and take a look out on Capitol Hill. Republican senators are pushing forward with a new budget plan. Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina released a 61-page budget resolution on Friday, which will set up the Senate for a budget reconciliation bill later on. This new budget plan wants to increase military and border security spending. The resolution would increase annual spending by $85.5 billion, but Graham claims this will be covered in spending cuts. Taking a look to the other side of the political aisle, Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has outlined how Democrats look to fight against Trump's administration. In a letter to other Senate Democrats, Schumer announced a new whistleblowers portal on the Senate Democrats' website that is meant to collect reports of corruption and threats to public safety. Schumer also outlined the importance of Democrats' support for courts and legislation to fund the government to avoid a shutdown. 13 of Trump's 22 nominees for his cabinet have been confirmed. One of the newest confirmed is Pam Bondi. Bondi will serve as the U.S. Attorney General by a vote of 54 to 46. She formerly served as a prosecutor in the state of Florida for 20 years and as one of Trump's attorneys during his first impeachment trial. Other confirmations in the past week include Scott Turner for Housing and Development Secretary, Russell Vought for Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and Doug Collins for Veteran Affairs Secretary. Now, things are only just starting to heat up in our nation's capital, so we'll keep you up to date with what's going on the Hill. But for now, let's go ahead and send it back to the boys in the studio.
Hey, Johnny, what are you looking at?
I don't know, Jordan. I'm just looking for something to watch.
Well, Johnny, you came to the right place. And wouldn't you know it, it's a new week, and we've got some more polls to watch. And who better to give you a breakdown of them than me? I've got a brand new one for you this week, looking at how people feel about the direction that the country is going in. This one from Rasmussen Reports shows that people aren't so approving of where the U.S. is going right now. It's not an overwhelming majority, but 48% of Americans disapprove compared to the 45% that do approve. And now it's time for our weekly check of how the country feels about President Donald Trump. Trump at a positive approval rating among those polled at 53% positive, 47% negative. Now, I don't know about you, Johnny, but a lot of complaints before the election were about rising prices on everyday items like eggs. And if any of my scrolls through social media were an indicator, that was a pretty big reason that people voted for Trump in the first place. Yet, when I go to the grocery stores, those eggs sure do seem pretty pricey still. Now, a lot of America shares that same sentiment, it seems. Keeping in that CBS YouGov poll, 66% said they wish that the Trump administration would focus on lowering prices on goods and services compared to the 31% that said they were doing good. I mean, this poll looks a lot like the Super Bowl, just a total blowout. Now, I'm always looking forward to the polls, but Johnny, I know you've always got some stuff we got to look ahead to.
Yes, Jordan, and as we always like to say, a lot's going on. Super Bowl happened last night. Hey, I was happy that the Eagles beat the Chiefs. Not a fan of the Chiefs. Sorry to my sister, but there are some things to look ahead for instead of just the next NFL season. Here's some things to keep an eye out for this week. With recent proposals of the president wanting to roll into Gaza and Hamas announcing today they are delaying their next prisoner exchange, the Israel-Hamas war is still very much in the air. The two sides will work not only to carry out the remainder of the initial ceasefire, but an eventual truce to end the war. Before we can even speculate what happens in a post-war Palestine, we have to consider how the U.S.'s involvement in the war could impact the timeline, stipulations, and other potential avenues to reaching an agreement to end the war. Courts across the country are slowing down and even momentarily stopping actions the Trump administration is taking. A third judge blocked Trump's orders to stop birthright citizenship. DOJ has been told to keep their nose out of the U.S. Treasury Department, and a Rhode Island court demanding the president to unfreeze assets that were found to still be frozen despite a court order. Both Vice President J.D. Vance and Elon Musk have called out the courts, questioning their authority. As our government works in three divisions, it looks as if the judicial and executive branch are going to be an unhappy couple throughout this term. On the same note, a judge is keeping the USAID afloat after blocking the president's actions to disband the agency. A watchdog reported billions of humanitarian aid dollars are in limbo with no way to track or supervise that cash. As Trump gives an unelected official freedom to advise and even act to find ways to cut government spending, other departments such as the Department of Education are in the line of fire for what agency Musk could strike next. And Jordan, that is just a couple of the big highlights. Still, we have tariffs between the United States and China, as still we're down to, I think, 3, maybe 3.5 weeks before, those tariffs that were brought up last week could be brought back in. A lot of negotiations and more, the economy, and just everywhere.
Yeah, Johnny, always a lot to think about, but we've got you covered.
And we want to thank you for tuning in to The Update tonight, where you'll find all your news and politics.
Tune in next week for more updates from the local level to the nationwide level.
From The Update, I'm Johnny Ball.
And I'm Jordan Tovar. Have a wonderful night.